Annual Lake Tahoe Summit, a gathering of elected leaders from both California and Nevada aimed at protecting Lake Tahoe, that region, and addressing climate concerns. Republican Congressman Kevin Kiley represents the California side of the Tahoe Basin. He joins us now on Inside California Politics. Congressman Kiley, it's a rare sight when we see Democrats and Republicans shoulder to shoulder, but Lake Tahoe does bring members of both parties together each year for this Lake Tahoe Summit. You have sponsored legislation in order to protect Lake Tahoe in terms of restoration. But before we get into that, in terms of where that legislation stands right now, what is your message to Californians in terms of the work that needs to be done on a constant basis? I mean, we're in this news cycle right now. Everyone's paying attention to this presidential election right now, but there's other big business in terms of something like this happening in our state.
Absolutely, and it was really refreshing and an amazing event, this summit, where we had folks coming together from across the aisle, across two different states, actually, and we were all rowing in the same direction, working together to protect something that's larger than any of us, that's really timeless, and that's Lake Tahoe. So I was extraordinarily grateful for the partnership with our senators here in California, as well as Nevada, as well as with Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, who came and joined us and also voiced support for Tahoe. So I'm incredibly grateful that we've been able to build those bridges, and it's really, really important for a lot of reasons. And first and foremost among them, by the way, is for the tens of thousands of people who are actually residents of the Tahoe Basin itself.
All right, so the legislation that you co-sponsored is called the Lake Tahoe Restoration Act. It was passed out of the Senate. It's in the House right now. Where is it in terms of the process, and do you feel like it's going to make it out of the House?
Yeah, I do. I'm very hopeful that we're going to get this through committee next month and out of the House and signed into law by the president before the end of the year. It's bipartisan legislation. It's called the Lake Tahoe Restoration Act, and we're trying to reauthorize it for another decade. And that's going to bring potentially hundreds of millions of dollars in funding for forest management and fire mitigation in the Tahoe Basin, for lake clarity, keeping Tahoe blue, for invasive species protection, for environmental projects that will keep our air clean. And I'm, again, just delighted by the amount of support that we've gotten. I think that we've got it right where it needs to be in terms of getting it through. And honestly, I think that this is the sort of thing that we need to see more of. I think that folks are really tired of the kind of endless cycles of partisanship and division and rancor. And when we can find common projects like this to come together on, I think it really moves our politics and our country in a much better direction.
All right, so you're talking about working across party lines, and now we're going to get partisan here because the other theme of our show this week, we're talking about the Democratic National Convention, which is going to be taking place next week in Chicago. Obviously, you know, a fellow Californian will make history there, becoming the first person of color, woman, to be officially nominated by her party. We know you're a Republican. We know that you would like to see Donald Trump win this election. I want to ask a two-part question here. First of all, to get your thoughts on a Kamala Harris presidency, and also, do you think that Donald Trump is running a race right now where he can beat her?
Well, I'll say, first of all, I'll have many constituents who vote for Vice President Harris. I'll have many who vote for President Trump. It's my job to represent all of my constituents, regardless of their partisanship or who they support in the presidential race. With that being said, I do think that coming from California, we have sort of a unique vantage point here because it's really through leadership in San Francisco, in California as a whole, that Kamala Harris made her way in politics. And I think that a lot of the things that people are frustrated about with the quality of life in California today, she did have a hand in terms of the level of crime we have in California, with Proposition 47 and Proposition 57 being some of the biggest problems that have led to the crime situation. Some of the sanctuary policies that I think people have realized are not necessarily the best thing for our state. So I think that when you look at what's going on in California, the direction our state has been going, she will have to sort of explain why that's a good thing for the country, especially when we actually see people finally starting to move in the other direction in California. You see that the voter registration numbers have actually become a little bit more balanced now for 3 straight cycles after years of it becoming more and more one-sided. So I do think that that's kind of the interesting split screen that we're going to have, is that you're going to have her sort of, to some extent having to run on her record in California, while at the same time Californians are taking it upon themselves to move the state in a different direction.